Let your curiosity rise.
Madbricks webcast,
Where the human spirit flies. Madbricks webcast. Where the human spirit flies.
Hey, welcome to the MedBix webcast. This is Raman Annamaraju. I'm the host. We are going to talk about some interesting topic today, the vitamins. Everybody, I attended a seminar actually. I want to talk with my co-host, Dr. Susan Davis. She has a beauty with a headache today. Dr. Susan Davis, welcome. Welcome, Susan.
Yeah,
I
you
said
know
that
what?
you're beating with the brains with a bad headache. I said, I hope
know, I
you're
heard
feeling
that. Thanks for
you're,
sharing.
you're feeling better.
Yes, I actually am feeling better. Thank you for asking. I never get a headache. It was kind of strange. But anyway, onward and upward.
Yeah, that's good. At least feeling better. I was just one of the seminars I'm attending today. I was MDB Capital or something. They're talking about NCN vitamins and longevity vitamins and some new molecule coming in, NCN and NCT. Oh my God, The- I I hated chemistry when I was growing up. That's why I joined the physics. Just I don't like those long chemistry things. You guys, biology guys and chemistry guys, you like it. So, how is your weather in Florida? You're joining from Fort Myers, right?
Yes,
So,
I am. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's beautiful, sunny South Florida. We're just getting close. We're very close to hurricane season, June
oh my
1st.
God, yeah.
Yeah, here we go again. And it's starting to build up every day now. So we're starting to have our daily afternoon thunderstorms. The tides are really high. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that I get another pass this summer.
Collect all the eggs and everything ready to ready to hibernate for a while for you guys. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's a very strange world you're in. But we don't understand at all. But Silicon Valley people, we are 365 days, same temperature, same, almost same every day. You should be jealous a
It's
little
an
bit.
acquired taste. It's an acquired taste.
Acquired taste, yeah. Let me introduce you. Our guest is she is an expert in vitamins and vitamin testing. Let me
It's
let me put
a lot deeper
yeah.
than that. It's very exciting.
The I where is the intro? I don't know. She didn't put it, but Navya, yeah, I didn't send it to her or whatever happened. Let me
I
see.
added the notes.
I didn't say the intro there. Yeah.
See,
But anyway, I
let
put it in
Dr.
the
Leena
intro.
come on.
Navya, there is intro there. Anyway, Dr. Leena Pradhan, she is from India, originally from Mumbai, in Maharashtra, as a Maharashtrian. And she moved to Tulane and got a PhD. I think she did a PhD there in molecular
Yep.
science. She is from, like me, my father is an Ayurvedic doctor and allopathic both. He was practicing and a teacher in the small village. So Leena came from a similar background, and she came from Ayurvedic people, the Ayurveda around her growing up, and studied molecular science here after Tulane. I want to ask her what is after that. She became associate professor in Harvard Medical School, and she was teaching cardiovascular science and all those things. And we'll ask her. Welcome, Leena Pradhan. Welcome, Leena. Well,
Hi.
yeah. Explain to me a
Thank
little
you.
bit of your background. I tried to do, and I
No,
don't
you
want to say
you
your
were you
last
were
name.
spot on though. You got it.
I,
So
I don't want to.
as
I
you
don't want to kill
mentioned, I
your
grew
last
up.
name
Yes.
completely out of
Oh, don't
control.
don't
But you
worry.
can.
So I have two parts to my last name. The second part, even to this day, my dad has trouble saying it. So it's Leena Pradhan-Nabzdyk. That's all right. Leena Pradhan is good enough. So my background, I grew up in India, as you mentioned, and I grew up around Ayurveda and traditional medicine. I got my PhD in pharmacology, in molecular pharmacology at Tulane University in New Orleans. And then soon after that, I moved to Boston for my first faculty position. And ever since I've been there. But during my time at Harvard, I met some phenomenal people, especially two of these individuals, Dr. Frank Legerfo and Dr. Manoj Bhasin, who are my close collaborators. And just like me, Manoj also grew up in India around the same traditional medicine. And he is PhD in genomics bioinformatics, and he was working with he is still working with a lot of different types of clinicians and other PhD scientists. But one of his projects back then, a few years ago, was around understanding how does meditation affect human gene expression and thereby human health and wellness. And so that's how he got into the alternative medicine space with his expertise in genomics bioinformatics. And naturally, growing up in India, he started getting curious around the traditional medicine, Ayurveda medicine, which around that time we started seeing a huge proliferation of those types of products in the Western world, including in the US. And while we were already working on our academic collaborations together, we had never thought about going back to our roots. And we decided to form our collaboration and to start what we now have, Canomiks, and provide services, scientific services to the industry. And many things have happened since then. But yeah, so that's my brief intro about who I am, what, where I came from, and what got me into this field.
Susan may know a lot more about vitamins than me. I'm a very very primitive knowledge that I have, but yeah, I want to ask you and one question, and then after hand over to Susan to talk with you. And one of the questions that I have is just now you mentioned that there is a yoga meditation effect on the gene expression. Is there any results came out of that study?
They actually, Manoj and his group, they were at the Mass General Brigham. At that time, it was the Mass General Hospital, and I forgot what the name of their institute. Their Benson Henry Institute of Mind Body, I think Wellness, something along those lines. But yes, they published a lot of studies, and in fact, I'm glad you bring that point up. Manoj always talks about this. If you think about all the growth of the meditation and the yoga centers that has happened in the US, you can go back 10 years and see a lot of that growth started happening right around when they started publishing those studies. And they have published studies where effect of meditation and what they call the relaxation response on people who have never done or used those types of tools for their wellness, or they have used it for people with chronic conditions, I think including IBD and IBS, and also people who had, I think, diabetes and other populations where stress is a big thing. So yes, a lot of their studies were published, and you can almost pinpoint that was where you started seeing growth around that time in yoga meditation around this country. So
they've shown that the yoga meditation can increase the length of your telomeres. I mean, in very short length of time, if you really focus and do the work, you can improve your everything, really, your longevity. What is it, our new hot word, longevity? I'm sure it's in your work too, Dr. Leena. People are talking about longevity. And to Ramana's point, your vitamins, your work does a lot more than just vitamins, Ramana. I mean, so my question to you right off the top is, you have through a handful of your businesses, and I looked at your team on your website, and Manoj and his work, and then your other colleague and his cardiovascular work with the valves. So two seemingly very different, very big topics combined to make these amazing services and solutions. So tell us about some of your solutions, because I know you've come up with it's Canomiks. Did I get that right? Canomiks?
yes,
And you have a seal of approval.
correct.
And trust is a big word in your world, and all of you and your colleagues' word, trust, which is huge. So when it comes to consumers, and way more than vitamins, Ramana, any supplements and even anything we put on our skin, can we trust it? And how can we trust it? And it's one thing for the FDA to say, yep, the ingredients match what they say. Okay, check. Good luck. But you and your colleagues go a big step further. Tell us about what you guys do that's different.
Yeah, so exactly, Susan, the FDA. So let me talk about what the FDA does. There is this misconception that vitamins, minerals, and nutritional, some of those over-the-counter nutritional products are not FDA regulated, especially the dietary supplements. They are in the separate category, managed regulatory wise a little bit differently. And what the FDA does, or let's start with what it does not do. Like your traditional drugs, the FDA makes you go through different clinical trials, and then after your third phase of clinical trial, go no go, your product is in, if it passes all the trials and proves efficacy, all of that, the FDA allows you to sell or market the product. What happens in the dietary supplement world is that FDA does not ask you to do those efficacy trials. Um, and then there are some nuances there. What you call, these ingredients are called generally regarded as safe, because a lot of these ingredients, if you think about, are used in our daily cuisines. For example, where I come from in India, turmeric is a part of our daily cooking. And so what the FDA, however, does is it monitors how you sort of like sell that product, how you market it, what kind of claims you're making, and it requires you to do some mandatory testing. When you say it's turmeric, it has to be turmeric. It has to be tested to prove that it was turmeric. If you say it's going to be 500 milligrams, it better be 500 milligrams in that capsule or whatever that dose is. And there are certain contaminants that you have to check for. And so while the FDA doesn't make you go through the efficacy testing, it absolutely requires you to go through the safety testing. And on top of it, for dietary supplements, they have to be manufactured in the same type of facility, which you call the CGMP facility, as your drugs. So that's all good. So I cleared that thing out, what the FDA does. But what you bring up is where that's our main value proposition is, okay, now you have this product, it's good quality. So what? Does it really affect your body in a good way, right? I mean, I'm not going to take something just because, oh well, nowadays things are changing around that as well, somebody else tells me to do it or take it, right? I'm taking a certain supplement or a certain nutritional product because I hope it supports my health. It brings my health to a homeostatic, a good balance, right? Let's say I have a 12-year-old, stomach flus can be common in schools. After a week you're just drained out and you just want to get back, your tummy is all upset and you want to take some probiotics, right? And so will that probiotic help me come back to my normal self, help me support my gut because it was messed up for a couple of days? And so that's where the supplements and the other nutritional products help. They're not there to cure or prevent, treat a condition, but they're there to help you while you may be taking other medications or just for your regular well-being. And so, okay, but we still need to make sure that they work, that they support. If that's your claim, that it's going to support your heart health or it's going to support your sleep health, does that product really do that? And that's what we do at Canomiks. We make sure we validate a product or an ingredient for what it is supposed to do. If you have a product, let's say tomorrow you come to me, the two of you say, hey, we want to create this product because somebody in our family suffers, blah, 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 and we want to support their health. And I'm going to mix these 3, 4 different ingredients. Can you make sure that it will have some sort of an effect? And if it's even safe. And so what we do at Canomiks, we take those ingredients, mix them in the proportions that you want to mix them. And then we use what you call in vitro methods, where we use commercially available human cells, treat those cells with those products, ingredients, and look at gene expression changes. You'll hear me say that word, gene expression. It's not your DNA directly, meaning it's not going to change your fingerprint, your DNA that you're born with, but it will regulate which parts of your DNA get turned on or off and to what degree, etc. Which is what
So
happens
the
with.
epigenetics. So you're able to look at like the proteins. Am I getting too crazy here? Is
No,
it
no, no, you're on the right track. So what we look at is what gene expression is. So you have your DNA gene expression. The next step is called what we call the mRNA, which we got very familiar with during COVID times.
Mm.
And then mRNA then becomes protein, and then proteins are what act on other cells or the same cell where it was made. And then the outcome of all of that is you either have a symptom of a condition, or you have just feel better, or whatever that manifestation of that protein actually being created is what you then see as an effect, where that protein works and how it functions. But it all starts in your DNA, which you can't do much with, and you shouldn't be doing much with. But what you
Mhm.
can change on a day-to-day basis, or gets changed even without you knowing it, is what of those genes that get turned on or off. So
So
that's
that's
where
a major difference, Ramana. Most get past the FDA. Okay, so the ingredients, yes. The dosage, yes. What about? We'll go back to your turmeric example. Anti-inflammatory. Can you tell in your petri dish with the human cells and the genomic testing whether it is anti-inflammatory in
Yes, so
nature?
that's another good question. So we actually are funded by the National Science Foundation. We have a $1.25 million grant. It will be in its last year, starting June 1st, where we are actually standardizing the biological effect of these botanical ingredients, because botanical ingredients are a crazy group of ingredients. Again, I'm going to give you an example. If you take ibuprofen, doesn't matter, right? If you buy a CVS brand or Target brand or Walmart brand, it's ibuprofen. It's a synthetic molecule. It's the same molecule. It's You don't think about it, what brand to buy. Whereas turmeric or any of the other botanical ingredients, they change from batch to batch. They change from where that plant was grown, how the plant was, what kind of soil it was grown in, what kind of variety of that plant is. And so the ultimate ingredient that comes out of that plant is going to change. And if that changes, then the effect of that ingredient is going to change. So, and there, right now, the only way we can test for botanical ingredients is what you've been talking about, Susan, is that turmeric or not, and is it contaminated or not, and is it present in the levels that the claim is being made, or the label says. But beyond that, we really don't know if that turmeric that was grown in some part of India versus the turmeric now which is grown in Chile are going to have the same effect. And so we are standardizing the biological effect of these botanical ingredients before they get into our supplements. And so again, at the back end, we always use genomics, bioinformatics as our methods and tools. And so next time you want to make a product, you're like, hey, I have 5 different sources of turmeric. Which one should I use? You send it to us, we test it and tell you if that's a good turmeric or not. And coming back to your anti-inflammatory question, when we were doing all of these studies, so we use turmeric as our prototype, and it does have a lot of anti-inflammatory effects. What's interesting is it has more of uh, pro it stops the pro-inflammatory, but what it really enhances are the anti-inflammatory molecules. Because a lot of so there are when inflammation happens, there are certain proteins that increase it and certain proteins that decrease the inflammation. So what turmeric does is increases the expression of the proteins that are supposed to decrease inflammation. So that's what we have seen in our studies.
Let me ask you a biological effect. You said, are there any real studies done, peer-reviewed studies, or the biological effect, genetic expression, is the gene epigenetics change? Are there any studies clearly done? The effect, direct effect, you can measure that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything that we do at Canomics, we don't run clinical trials. We do everything in vitro in a petri dish. Couple of years ago, we did a study with Ocean Spray, and I can use their name because they actually put out a press release with the work that we did with them. And with that work, what we had found out was that normally you think about cranberry and you think about anti-inflammation or something related to your bladder infection, etc. But what we had found out was that cranberry has a positive effect on your cardiovascular the proteins that are involved in maintaining your cardiovascular health. And while we didn't do a clinical trial, there was a completely independent study that came like a month after this study that we did, and they published that work in UK, where they had shown that very similar markers, or the markers that we found are responsible for maintaining um, blood pressure. They looked at the blood pressure changes. They saw the same effect. Completely separate study with cranberry, and then of course that's an example that I can give from the work that we have done. But there are many studies linking gene expression changes coming with these types of ingredients.
Let us talk about a little bit about the turmeric. You just continuing the discussion. I is the absorption of the turmeric. Turmeric is a big challenge, right? So tell me a little bit of the absorption problem in the turmeric. India we put on in a curry, every curry we put turmeric. Does it when you mix with oil is a more absorbing quality is there or
Yes,
tell us a little bit.
absolutely. So yes, so what happens is you may be taking 500 milligrams of turmeric, but turmeric, as you talked about, the what we in pharmacological terms we call it bioavailability. So not everything gets to where it needs to go. It's not properly absorbed. So there are different ways of increasing the absorption of turmeric. There are companies who have come up with their own branded ingredients where they have either put the ingredient in some sort of nanoparticles that are easy to be absorbed, or there are other delivery mechanisms like liposomes where turmeric has been added, or one of the most common ways is to add pepper. And there are studies showing that when you have turmeric mixed or made more friendly or more available to the gut, then it will have the amounts that are needed to have an effect. So you're back.
What is that? What is
We
going
got
on with you?
there's a
What
big
is going?
storm passing, lightning hit, and everything.
Mm.
Uh-oh,
Now
be
you're dropping
safe.
again. Can you raise a little bit of a hide your camera?
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah, a little bit. That's good. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
rats.
We're
Sorry,
talking
what
about
I missed.
turmeric while
No.
your lightning strike. I hope you're safe. But let me ask you, Leena, that she's talking about turmeric and effect of the turmeric. This. What are the clinical benefits? That we saw. My friend has a company in Connecticut. Is turmericinnovations.com. He put in the absorption, and he was selling these. Mints and the turmeric mints. So he say that he guarantees the absorption rate is a lot more higher than a normal. So what are these efficacy of these absorption and
Yeah.
absorption of things?
So again, we haven't done any clinical trials ourselves because we work in the preclinical phase. But I think one thing, and this is true for any botanical, not just turmeric, a lot of times we see that, oh, the clinical trials failed or there was no clinical effect. And then Manoj and I, we've always talked about, was there no effect because that particular ingredient doesn't have any effect, which is totally fine because even for drugs, clinical trials fail a lot. And that's completely understandable. Or did the clinical trial fail because the source of that ingredient was not right, right? What if it was a dud ingredient? What it was, just stayed on the shelf for a long time and just lost its bioactive material that was in there that really
Is it
has an
me
effect. So there
again?
are so many different ways that you have to think about when you're using botanicals. Whereas when like again, I go back to my example, of ibuprofen, or let's say aspirin, or any other metformin, whatever drug you want to think about, these are synthetic molecules. They don't have the issues or the challenges that come with a botanical ingredient. The other thing that I often talk about is what we call the entourage molecules. Okay, and I've never learned that term all my life. When as a pharmacologist, I learned that only when I got into this industry. Is again going back to that turmeric example. So you have turmeric, and the active ingredient in it is called curcumin, right? But then there are all these other little molecules, other little curcuminoids that are also present. By themselves, they don't have much of an effect. But when they're all acting together, these entourage molecules that accompany that natural ingredient, they do impact the outcome of your main bioactive. And sometimes it's very hard to even parse them out. So for example, we for our what we call the where we are standardizing the biological effect of ingredients, we call that, and that's still under development, that technology, we call that bio b2b. So as we were thinking about bio b2b and what ingredients to bring on that platform, after we did use turmeric as our prototype, One of them was elderberry, and elderberry was interesting because it got really popular during COVID times. It has been shown to have anti-COVID or anti what you call inflammation antiviral type of effects. And so we were interested in knowing what inside of that elderberry, because if you think of elderberry, it's a fruit, it has many different molecules in there, but of course, polyphenols are some of the top molecules which have the effect. But then so does cranberry, but cranberry and elderberry have very different types of effects. So there are all these other molecules, and you need to know what fractions are there, what, how much they're present, which variety. The elderberry, which only recently has been started to be grown in the US, versus most of the elderberry in our supply chain here comes from Europe. How do they differ, and how can we control for those entourage molecules and understand more about them as well while we think about our biological efficacy types of testing.
Leena, well, I'm sorry I got when I was gone, but one of my questions for you about the batch to batch that you shared, it could be different parts of the world, could be a drought. There's a million reasons why the efficacy could go up or go down. Does that mean when you set this standard, I guess, do you have to keep testing? Do you have to test you have to test each batch? How do we keep
Yeah,
with batch?
that's a absolutely great question. So when we create those standards, we make sure that we have many different inputs from different regions. So when we were, and which is still under development, when trying to build this standard for elderberry, we got elderberry from Latin America, from Chile. We got elderberry from Italy. We have elderberry from a farm in Louisiana. We have elderberry from, I think, Missouri. So we try to get as many sources as possible. And then what we look for is what's common across all of them, right? And so we try to capture gene expression changes across. So if you had a different source, different time of the year, we actually mixed from one year's harvest to the other year's harvest as well in our testing. So we want to get as much information as possible. Now, will we be able to capture everything and everywhere? No. So to answer your question, we ourselves will have to recheck our standards every couple of years to keep it robust.
Excellent. And then they're measured against that one.
Exactly.
You're measured against that, and then you check yours, however
also
often.
on an ongoing, yes, on an
Excellent.
ongoing basis. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I've got to switch it up just a little bit because I'm super curious. Is the testing that you do in B2B, what did I say right? Bio B2B. Yeah. Have you or can you test the peptides? Like the peptides are crazy right now. People are injecting peptides. People are taking PO peptides. Can we? And the efficacy is where? No one. I mean, they're bioavailable. How do we test them?
Yeah. So for that, we just go with a regular product validation service. The Bio B2B is very specific for botanical type of ingredients, okay. And it's more of a standard quality standard measure, not so much of an efficacy measure or product validation measure. So, but yes, we have tested all kinds of fatty acids, peptides. Once we worked with a company that had mixed 17 different ingredients in a product. So we tested that.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if you send me something, I'm able to test it as long as I'm able to get the bioactives in a soluble form. I can test that and tell you whether you have a good product or not, whether you have any issues with not contamination, but safety or not. We would be, because if you think about it as a pharmacologist, and going back to that FDA point that I made earlier, how the FDA testing works. It starts with safety studies. Then you have so that's the phase 1. Then you go to phase 2. Does it have any effect? And then you have a bigger, larger study, right? And then you may even compare it to whatever state of the field is, your next best comparator, right? So you go through all those phases. If a product fails at any of those phases, it's not going to the next phase, right? So if something, and a lot of the pharma products or the biotech products start in somebody's lab somewhere. If it fails in my petri dish, I'm not taking it to the next step, right? So that's what we tell our customers. If it fails in my petri dish, in my lab, in commercially available human cells, it's not worth taking the risk of running an expensive clinical trial or bringing it to the market, because then it's, what are you trying to sell to people? Yeah, it's the testing is not required, the type of testing we do, but is that the right thing to do? Right? We all want something that's good and that's ethical. And you brought up the point early on in the conversation about trust. So everything that we do at Canomics is so that our B2B customers, they find loyalty from their consumer and their customers, and that their customers can trust them. So everything that we do is about trust, and trust comes from science in our case.
We love science. We love science, and we always have to throw in the infamous AI question, right, Ramana? So we
Yeah.
know you've got human cells, we know you've got genomics, and now sprinkle with a little AI and stir. Where does AI come in your work?
So we've been using AI before AI was a thing. 10 years ago, we built databases and used AI at the back end to understand how do different ingredients, if they were to be given to a person, how would they interact, or their interactions would, what kind of effect that would have on a human. That's actually where one of the first things we did at Canomics. And then even for our bio B2B technology that is under development, we use AI at the back end. So when I was telling you that we get sources from different places, that's how we train our AI machine to make sure that it's
Ah,
robust, and we have inputs of all sorts, not just different sources, but different doses. Right now, we are in a step where we are adding contaminants and seeing how does that change the outcome. And
cool.
we what we have is a predictor technology where we can predict if a given ingredient is going to function or not function. So that's one place where we are using AI. And then the other place, we are using AI tools, but not really AI as like a thing of our service, which is our consumer service. And we can talk about that as well, which we call the whattotrust.com. But most of our
Yeah.
AI is inbuilt in our pipelines for our bioinformatics, in the types of the scientific solutions that we have. It's been there forever.
Lena, one of the things is your company doesn't it doesn't validate the clinical efficacy of the vitamins. Whatever their claims are, you test what the ingredients, what the quantity they say. You test that potency. That's what you do, right?
No.
Am I missing something there?
Yes, we actually we don't do the clinical trial. When you say clinical trial, it's in humans. We don't do the human part of it, but we do the preclinical before you test and anything going directly into humans. It's not safe. So we do the preclinical. It's not safe from any different. It's not safe for the consumer, but it's not also safe for your bottom line, because what if that or that product was never to have an effect? So that's what I was talking about. If it fails in my petri dish in my preclinical trial, don't take it to because it's going to fail in your clinical trial. On the opposite end of it is, just because it passes our preclinical testing, it's not guaranteed that it's going to pass a clinical trial. However, it does increase your potential to have a successful clinical trial.
So
You
you get it,
know,
Ramona? It's like a whole extra step that nobody does. I mean,
Exactly.
we can check what's in there. They can check that it matches what's in the label. They can check the dosage, but they get to pre-clinically use human cells. So it's like the safety and efficacy of doing it on human cells in a dish to see what is the effect on genomically before it gets to the trial to try on humans.
Yeah,
Pretty
and
cool.
this is what we call mechanism of action. So even if your product was to pass your clinical trial, and if you have never done a preclinical, you will never know the mechanism of action. So if you go to the FDA, or in certain countries, you actually need mechanism of action proof for a product. So you can then come to us and say, hey, can you give me the mechanism of action? Because what it does is we look at what are the, out of your 20,000 genes, which ones of them are affected. And then we run them through, again, those pipelines for bioinformatics, and we can tell these 30 group of genes are responsible for this health and wellness condition. These 5 genes are responsible for that. So we can give you a big picture. And sometimes companies come to us and be like, hey, we know this is going to work for sleep. And then we do the study, and we can, yes, it's going to work for sleep, but what our data shows that it may also be useful for a completely different outcome that you want to support, like gut health, for example. Uh, think about it. Our human body has these 20 plus thousand some genes, right? And they are in every cell. How the cells interact with each other determines what function that cell does. But in a petri dish, you can essentially get most of those genes to show up. When I say show up, meaning like we can see the effect for most of those genes because they're outside the body. They don't have the other environmental cues that they normally get from their surrounding tissues.
So just, I'm very curious, and this is a, hopefully we won't have to spend a lot of time on this, but when you say a commercially available cell, is this, can you just buy like epithelial cells? I mean, what type of,
Yeah,
is it just
so
like they just
exactly.
produce?
Yeah, you should, you should become an advisor to Canomics. we actually do a lot of, we actually do a lot of our studies in small intestinal epithelial cells. I love those cells because they express almost all types of genes. Um,
Yeah.
and then the gut-brain axis. So they also have a lot of brain-related genes that could be expressed in those cells. The ocean spray study that I mentioned, that was done in those cells, and we saw expression of cardiovascular related genes. So yes, but then we can work with any type of, we have worked with skin cells, which are the keratinocytes. We have worked with skin fibroblasts. We have worked with vascular cells. We have worked with retinal ganglion cells. We have
Wow.
worked with cartilage cells for bone health. If the cell is commercially available, um, and that's what you want to do, yeah.
Very
But if you
exciting.
don't have a preference, if you just say that I have made this amazing formulation, I want to know what are the different things it could be used for, that's when I will go most likely to the small intestinal epithelial cells and give like a whole, like complete picture of all the different genes that could be affected. So
So if we,
This Susan and her friends are big cheerleaders. Sorry, one second, Susan. Susan and
mhm.
her friends are big cheerleaders for vitamin D. You know that your friend Beth Sanford, she was on my podcast. They always talk about vitamin D. What is your take on the vitamin D efficacy and the real thing, and what are the real research done on the vitamin D?
So I'm not an expert in vitamin D, so I don't want to misspeak. But what I will say is that be it vitamin D or vitamin C or vitamin E, any of those, because they're synthetic molecules, they are much easy to work with, and they don't have the same challenges as the botanical ingredients or some
Mm.
exotic ingredients that could be out there. But I do take vitamin D myself. I think in mine is a mix of vitamin D and calcium.
Okay. Oh,
Especially, I'm a brown woman. I live in Minnesota, and you guys talked about how amazing weather you have there. It's been cold. It was like 40 degrees yesterday morning, this morning, and some
Yeah.
parts we had a hard frost. It was 28 degrees, and it's like almost June. Come on, So I don't go
good
out.
golly.
I'm constantly covered, so I don't get enough vitamin D from the sun. We have sun here for 4 months of the year, so I need vitamin D. But
Yeah.
again, I don't. Yeah.
There's, everyone needs vitamin D. Down here, I mean, I am, kind of a walking billboard for skin cancer. So I have, I have my challenges. But even myself, who's in the sun as much as I am and fair skinned, I had Dr. Beth Sanford. She looked at my levels and it was too low. So we won't get crazy about vitamin D. But how do we know? Like you just said, you can get them on Amazon. You can get them from the pharmacy. You can get them at Walgreens. How do we
For
know
this one,
what to trust?
Nature's
Yes.
Valley. That's what I got. Vitamin D.
So we've been speaking, Leena, a lot about the research side and the science side, but what about the consumer? How do we know what to trust?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And we asked the same questions when we first started Economics. How does a consumer make that decision what product to buy? And this all started as it happens at startups, right? We were trying to make a list of companies that we can target for our scientific services. And then we were like, oh, it would be great to find which companies are doing science, what kind of science they're doing, and then target them. What we soon realized is that that information is so hard to find, and I'm
Huh.
in this industry, I'm a scientist. If I'm having a hard time finding that information, think
And we're
about
out of
all the
luck. Then
consumers,
we're out
right?
of luck. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this whole proliferation of influencers, somebody telling you on TikTok, and then somebody else, word of mouth, and that's how people are making decisions. And that's not a good way. for products that you take inside of your body and expose your body to, maybe sometimes even every day. And so as we were curating that database, we soon realized we have to do something about it. First of all, let's start with the simple thing, educating the consumer about all of these different topics, right, around supplements and who should be taking it and what. And then we were like, even before we go there, let's even put out information about the trending ingredients. So we started having these passive sort of eh, putting out information around what's turmeric, what's ashwagandha, what's cranberry, whatnot. We Nobody engaged with that type of information. So then we thought maybe we can help consumers make that decision. And again, we are scientists, we don't want to talk about marketing or environmental impact, because there are other really good organizations that look into those factors. What kind of supply chain was used. We are scientists, we're going to stick to our science. So we started creating this database of listing out products and listing out what type of science went behind their development, not just at the product level but also at the individual ingredient level. And that's how we launched, almost a year ago, what we now call whattotrust.com. And whattotrust.com, we have kept it free for the consumer. We don't take any money from the companies whose products we list. My investors don't like the fact that I don't make any money from it, but that was not the goal. The goal was to elevate science and make the companies understand that do science, and then consumers will come to you, because now you can use science as your marketing tool. And so we score products, from vitamins and minerals to botanical ingredients to nutritional products to even electrolyte type of drinks. And it's free. Just sign up for it, whattotrust.com. We're constantly adding products, constantly making changes to the platform. So as much information that we can bring to the consumers, we want to do that. Again, everything is based, all the scoring is based on the quality of the science. Just this afternoon, I was talking to our web developers and our data scientists about, sometimes we have seen that a clinical trial is done on an ingredient, but this product has 4 other ingredients, and the product claims, oh, we are using clinically tested ingredients, but when you take a closer look, there's one ingredient. Or sometimes it's one ingredient, and maybe there are a couple of other ingredients, and then you see the clinically tested dose was, let's say, 500 milligram, but actually what's being marketed is 100 milligram, and that's what we call fairy dusting. So you can still say it was a clinically tested ingredient. And so
Wow.
always bringing back that trust lens. How
Yes.
can we make products and companies more trustable? And I always tell my colleagues in this industry, if you do the right thing, you will have consumer loyalty on one hand, and you will keep the regulators off your back on the other hand. And so what you get is peace of mind if you do science and if you do the right thing. And so science brings peace of mind is my new thing.
Well, we all agree. So they get 0 to 10. 10 is good, 0 not so good. So if they get a 10, or let's say they get a 5 or a 2, they get a low score. Do you break it down as to why they got a low score and
Yeah,
why
so
they
we
got
do
a
have a
high score?
breakdown. Yeah. So when you see the scores, you'll see a breakdown saying that they do the purity potency testing, which is required by the FDA, which is pretty much every company, because legally it's required. Then we look at the individual ingredients, how many of those ingredients. Now, we don't list out this ingredient was tested, this was not tested, not exactly, but we give an aggregate score. But we'll do say some of these ingredients underwent clinical testing. And then
Excellent.
and then we look at the whole product, because sometimes, and this is another interesting thing, if you mix 2 different ingredients thinking that they will have 1 + 1 = 2, one is for gut health, one is for knee joint whatever, and you mix them, so you'll get relief for both of them. Pharmacology doesn't work that way, biology doesn't work that way. 1 + 1 in pharmacology is often 4, and 1 + 1 can also be -4. So you have to keep those things in mind.
That's
It's not
that is
a
the reason. That is the reason I'm away from that organic chemistry. That's why I'm going to present a topic on completely different physics. Then after come back and I'll ask you, your colleague David Sinclair talks about NCN,
yeah.
other things. Let us talk about that once he come back. But let me show you a little bit of the. Can you bring that? I'm going to talk about a little bit different, but a 10, 15 minutes presentation. After that, you can talk back to the organic chemistry. So the all the molecules and everything is just a spin my head. But anyway, this is the this I'm going to talk about a very different subject, which I am familiar with. It's a particles. Fundamental particles have like a proton, neutron, electron. They have these are the fundamental particles of the nature. These particularly if you focus on the electron as a mass. We use that mass to actually do electron beam therapy, cancer treatment. In fact,
Yeah.
we use electron beam therapy for cancer treatment. So melanoma, those kind of cancers we can treat with a mass using a mass of electron. That and the charge of electron is a charge, is a very interesting charge. It charges, the whole entire thing powers up. The electron charges a negatively charged electron passing through a circuit can generate it powers up all our electronics, our phones and our computers and everything. So you see every day that one. But there is a very mysterious property. That is a purely a quantum property. Is called electrons as a spin. That spin is a very mysterious because it is nobody can really directly observe it, but he can measure it. So it is a more stranger than that is it is a both clockwise and anti-clockwise same time. It spins
Mm.
both clockwise and anti-clockwise same time. That is a spin of a electron. That is, we are going to use the spin for the imaging purposes, targeting purposes. We can be that is the future of electronics going in the medical devices going in the
Oh
direction.
yeah.
So charge current is, when electron goes through a circuit, basically that is a produces current, and it lights up the bulb and the battery, as you know, that is the charge current. That's a very standard process. But spin has its own current. Can you believe that? Spin, this elusive quantum property, has its own current. That's called spin current. you know that is so precise because this spin current is extremely powerful and extremely clear signal. So it has a lot of implications in the future of electronics. So charge current, as you know, it produces a massive number of gadgets, but spin current is still coming up as a new kind of a next generation of diagnostic tests are coming through spin current. That's what we're going to. It's called magnetic particle imaging. It's similar to MRI, but it's a
Mm.
magnetic particle imaging. It's a very portable almost. The
Oh
MR,
wow.
it can produce
Wow.
it can produce that thing. So what is the advantage of the spin current? The spin they call spintronics. All the spin current devices are called spintronics. The field is called spintronics. So the charge current is when the electron goes through a circuit, a charge is basically a negatively charged electron produces a lot of heat. But spin doesn't produce any heat. It's a very minimal loss of heat. That's a great thing about spin current, using the spin current. The high power you need to power up the electron to move around circuit. You need a very high power, high voltage. You need a strong power. But in the in the in the spintronics, you don't need that much power. Actually, you can pack up lot more density, lot more electrons and everything in the small place. So that's why you can see iPod, I think you can put so many songs you can in one small thin place because of the quantum spin. The signal limit is that scaling limit. There is a limit on the physical limit of the electron charge based electronics. You cannot keep on reducing the size. It is the limitations. But spin current is a faster speed, and you can reduce the size to the almost minimal. That's a great thing about spin current. So new kind of devices are coming up based on the spin based current. That's a feature. There's a the electric. What is a spin current is actually what we measure is a spin. Anywhere you see a current, you see magnetism. Is like a husband and wife for 40 years, they got married, they never be inseparable. Same thing. Wherever there is electricity, there is a magnetism. Remember that. That is important. So it's a perpendicular field, but wherever there is electricity, there is a magnetism there. So that magnetism is the key for the spintonics field of spintonics. Wherever there is a current, there is a magnetic field. That magnetic field we measure. That is what we do in the spintonics. That is where I'm actually involved with the National Science Foundation, Leena, with the spintonics, the kind of devices, quantum devices. I'm involved with that.
Very
I'm the
nice.
next in the December month. In September month. I'm doing some research on those kind of things. So medical devices that work on is the new devices are coming up. It is really fascinating devices based on spintonics. Is a biosensor patch. This patch is a vital sign monitoring system. It is so
Oh,
small. You can put in the needle basically that smaller.
oh wow.
Cool.
It is a new kind of a devices coming up. It is the performance higher, clear signal. Spin based signals are extremely clear. So spin based current produces we actually work on the magnetism of the spin current. That's all these devices are based on. Then
Hmm.
spin pacemaker, spintonic pacemaker. Medtronics actually uses at this time a pacemaker. There is a switch there, on and off switch for the pacemaker. They use actually in the beginning days, they used to use a manual switch, reed switch. Now, what they do is they use a spintonic device to automatically does that through the spin of the current. But
Hmm.
actually the whole device may be completely spintronic device may be coming in the future. That's going to be the game changer in the electronic device in the pacemaker studies, pacemaker implants. So if the greatest implants are going to come in, another implant is going to come in is in the cochlear, right? Cochlear, I think
Cochlear. Yeah.
cochlear. Yeah, she could say that. So that
Mhm.
implant is coming up. That is one of the things is the biggest problem. My father and all those things I remember. It's a very inconvenient. It is a very irritating. But this device is going to change the world. It can change the game changer. This pentonic device with a clear signal and lower power. So you don't need to change the batteries all the times and all those things. So this is going to be the future of electronics. This is an implant is coming up. It's implants and the neural stimulator. Elon Musk Neuralink has a lot of problems
Hmm.
because it came out and all those things. Spintonic based on neural stimulator is going to be game changer. This is a this is a where smallest things that really affect a spin based current is going to be minimal power required. It doesn't shift much easier. So it's going to be new kind of devices are coming up to the world of electronics. So spin current is a sensor. It's called giant magnetometers. These are all ferromagnetic. Like whenever you apply some nanoparticles, like iron particles, nanoparticles, when you apply magnetic field, it becomes a magnet. So they use that advantage to do. For example, I'm working on that. How to use hyperthermia, how to treat the cancer. Hyperthermia as a contrast agent is going to be the future contrast agents. GMR basically sensors or contrast agents. Envy Diamond Center I'm working on is similar to that. Is the Envy Diamond Centers are the greatest detectors of the cancer because
Mm.
they are. It is the Envy Center is a nitrogen vacancy center is basically a spin based. It is a very sensitive to magnetic variation in the magnetic field. Any anomaly of the individual cell, it can recognize these diamonds. These are impure diamonds can recognize very anomaly of the very small anomaly. So it can recognize way in advance the cancers. That is a feature of the spintonics field of spintonics. So spintonics is a new field is coming, and this is a sci-fi meeting a sci-fi thing. Spintonics meeting the superconductivity. Superconductivity is where there is a when you put the some of the materials put in the coldest temperatures, absolute close to the Kelvin temperatures, lowest temperatures. It actually, there is no resistance. The free energy, you get a free energy basically. They transmit electrons, transmit from one place to other place, and then they can lift up. They can lift up in the suspend the magnet, for example. You can suspend. Superconductivity is the zero resistant material. When you combine the spintronics with the superconductivity, you're opening a new field of entirely. That's like a sci-fi. Is a next generation of electronics coming in. It's going to change the medical device industry. Groundbreaking changes it will bring. They're working on it now. There's a lot of things are working on the spintronics, the spin-based current devices with the superconductivity. Only thing they are waiting for is superconductivity can work in the room temperatures. If they find that holy grail, we are into the different world. So what is the advantage of this? All these things. Think about this can solve the this can solve the. I don't know what I got here. Yeah, these are all people are working on the spintronics from a different place. Stanford, NTNU, Purdue, all of them are working on the spintronics and the superconductivity materials. Uh, so what is the advantage of this one? It is advantages. Iron triangle is the cost is going to go dramatically down because they're small. Units are easy to produce, and quality is going to be extraordinarily. Quality signal is excellent. Is a clear signal. Spin current produces, but there is no noise inside. It reduces a lot of dramatically reduces noise. Access to healthcare is the iron triangle of the healthcare system. Cost, quality, and access can be same time can be reduced into. It's affordable, and it is going to be a game changer in the field of medical device industry. So that is the let me. So actually, I want to tell you, you can build an entire computer based on a spin. You just, I'm talking about no electricity, no batteries, no power, external power. You can build the entire computer on based on spin. So spin can be. There is a museum in here. I want to go one day, one of these days. Chico, you can take the kids with you, and then you can show if the people are watching it. They can take their children. The Chico Museum of Yo-Yo history. That's spin based system that is in the Chico, California, right in the northern California, northern southern California is in between. So you can go and see that really the museum based on spin. You can produce the capacitors, you can produce the resistors by using spin, mechanical spin. Mechanics can create entire field of electronics actually. So the spintronics is a lot fun. Is a create a curiosity. It is a my father gave me a watch, Lena, when he died, and when he passed away. This watch I gave it to my son. This watch is purely based on spin. Entire watch is based on spin. It runs on the clock 24 hours. That is a you just give you probably remember,
Yeah, my
Lena.
dad had one where you spin it, I think, every 24 hours and then
Yeah,
it
24
runs.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, really, people don't know this, but it's all wheels and spin. That's all it does. It is the potential energy is stored in that sense. It is a it is a it is a it is a future of the spintronics coming back. That spin we are using for the better purposes. We are using the electrons, fundamental particles, using spin to produce a new devices. Thank you for watching. Let me bring it back. All my guests, something that scared the hell out of me, that the organic molecules, and now you can talk about
No,
it.
I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God, there is like this whole other field that I had never even thought about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it
Spintronics.
crazy? We started the conversation out with Ayurveda. So I'm finding it fascinating, the balance between from the start of this show till just we've gone from Ayurvedic medicine to spintronics, which we've never even heard of. And here it is, they're studying it all over the world, and we're about to take off into gosh knows what. But maybe I was thinking the whole time that you were presenting, Ramona, and that was awesome, by the way. Thank you. I learned so much on that presentation. But Leena, I was thinking specifically about a Southern Indian curry and the amount of ingredients, medicines in one dish could probably heal. We don't need spintronics, I think. If I send you that wonderful curry that I can't find in very few places, and you broke down all of those pieces, we could probably solve all the world's problems, I think, from Ayurvedic cooking.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
always, yeah, I always tell my friends, dietary supplements. I mean, a lot of these ingredients, you come to my house and you'll find it in my kitchen. We have these boxes where we put all these, and I'm sure Ramana knows about it as well. We put these because we don't use like,
Yeah, I
five
want to send
tablespoons
one
of something.
to.
It's just like one spoon of, of cumin, half a spoon of turmeric, but it's on an everyday basis, right? So these are not drugs. These are not supposed to have an acute effect unless, something is wrong with these products. But these are ingredients that build up whatever they're building up in your body over a period of time, right? And so you can't, it's not an ibuprofen that's going to stop your headache in like an hour, but it's something that you use as a habit more than anything else. And I am guilty that I don't cook Indian food enough. And but then when I go home, I go visit, my family is still in India, and that's all I do is I eat home cooked meal. My brother is
Mm.
like, "Oh, let's go have some pizza here. Let's go." I'm like, "No, I don't want
Oh,
that food."
but
I owe this to Susan. I told her that I'm going to send it. The next time I forgot about that. I'm going to send that all the Indian spices in one rack. That's
I,
Yeah.
she.
I I love them. I love them. So I guess again, my closing thoughts are, a specialty like both of yours. Romana's physics has been around since the beginning of time, and nobody, I don't want to say nobody, but the fact that it's now mainstream. I mean, it's really quantum computing and quantum
Yeah.
physics. We're talking about it every day now. And Ayurvedic medicine and our food. Can we trust the foods we eat? Is food medicine? We know food is medicine. And here, Leena, you and your colleagues are proving and disproving, is it safe? Is food medicine? So then you add spintronics. I mean, what a conversation, right? So in the same sentence, we're talking about hundreds and millions of year old sciences right here today, 2026, in the middle of a spin class.
Lena,
Yeah.
I'm going to. We're already extending a little bit more, but I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you a final question, and then Susan can close this. One is that these people. You were one of the Harvard scientists. David Sinclair talks about NCN. What is that NCN, NCT? What are these? Do you know anything about this?
No, I
What
don't
they
know what
say?
that is.
You talk
Yeah,
about
this
NAD?
Oh,
NCN,
NAD?
NAD,
I don't
NAD.
know what
Oh,
I
yeah,
NAD.
don't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it
Yeah, yeah.
NAD? Oh,
So
okay.
these, oh
they,
yeah, NAD is what you call is a molecule that helps in powering a lot of, the cell functions and whatnot, and they can get depleted very easily. Inflammation can bring it down. NAD can reduce inflammation. So, those are, responsible for our powerhouses, those molecules in our mitochondria, etc. So, again, if you think about a human cell or a human life, we have so many functions going on at the same time. Where do we get all that energy and the coordination, right? It's not just, it has to be so well coordinated, because something goes out of coordination, out of sync, then you have a problem at your hand, right? That's what happens in disease. And so a lot of these small molecules that help the machinery, and NAD happens to be one of them. Those are a lot of times we don't eat right food, or we don't get enough of it, and that's when we have to then go to supplements or other types of products that can boost those types of molecules.
the
Yeah.
reversal of aging, longevity. They talk about it. Is that claim is really valid in that sense? Is we have to take it with a pinch of salt about those kind of.
Yeah, again, I don't know the latest science behind NAD plus supplements, but I know that there is a lot that has been done by the Sinclair group in the anti-aging space, and I think in their case, instead of giving NAD, I think or maybe it is somebody else's product where they even give like one step before NAD. It's called the NAD precursor. So I don't know which one is their product, but the NAD plus and NAD precursors are very popular.
Yeah, they stack them, and that's that peptide crowd. The peptides and the anti-aging longevity crowd. They do, Leena. They stack the precursors, and then they want the one to feed the one, and then the one that, and then they sell you a pile of them, right? So you've got a good 20 injections you can do every day if you want to stay on this planet longer.
Yeah, and it's all about, the energy machinery, and then again, NAD is implicate or useful for a lot of our body functions, and they're useful for they're needed for maintaining health, and it's something that's found in every single cell. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
So every single cell needs it. And so that's how these things have become quite popular. I know there is a lot of science behind it. Again, I don't know what the latest is or where the clinical trials are, but I know that just the molecule itself is extremely important for our
Your
body to
company name
function
is
properly.
Canomics. Yeah, your company name is Canomics, right? .com.
Yeah.
CANOMICKS.
MIKS.
Trust, right? And it's what to
Yeah,
trust.
and then whattotrust.com. Yeah.
I love that one. I love them all.
Yeah.
I love them all. But I think the take home from this show is you and your colleagues have put together something for basically every one of the tastes of our audiences. So if you want the heavy duty science, it's there. If you are a consumer and you want to look at a product that you are looking to purchase, or let's face it, those of us over the years who've purchased products for anywhere along these lines, we all have, Ramana just showed his stacks on our counter. So, we can go and see how much on a 0 to 10. And I imagine that the products that if they get a low grade aren't too happy that but
yeah, they're not happy. And then the other thing, we there's what to trust, but we also are trying very hard to educate the consumer. So if you can also follow our LinkedIn page, What to Trust Scores. I do a lot of, I'm a scientist, and I'm camera shy, I would say, or I don't like to be the center of attention. And now our marketing, like this morning, we had this 2-hour meeting about all the different reels. I cringe. I'm not somebody who even take selfies. I don't even know how to take selfies. Okay. And now I'm here making these reels, but the goal is to really educate her. However, my cringe is my 12-year-old son's favorite word. Everything is cringe. So it's gotten into my vocabulary too. But however, awkward I feel, I think it's at the same time we have to educate the consumer. Like you said, the stacks. What's a stack? Like, do you really need all these supplements to begin with, right? More is not always better, and just make sure that you have a goal in mind when you go to the doctor. Talk about the supplements that you may be taking, because the other thing that we haven't talked about in today's conversation is the interactions between the supplements, but between also drugs and the supplements as well. So there's just so much to break down there as well.
Like you said, in pharmacy, 1 and 1 plus 1 does not always equal 2. You said it could equal 4, and gosh knows what. So you know what? You'll have to come back, because that's an awesome conversation. People say, "Oh, pre-surgery, you have to go off of, make sure you're not taking anything." And people think like, "Yeah, but I'm not going to talk about my, over-the-counter stuff or my peptides. Yeah. I'm never going to stop that." So to your point, that's a huge conversation between your prescribed medications versus all the other supplements that you might be taking.
Yeah.
So thank
Happy
you so
to come
much,
back
Leena.
Thank you for this opportunity. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah. It was a wonderful conversation. You educated all of us about the vitamins and the efficacies, all kinds of things. Thank you all for joining. All the good night for all peptide women. Or the peptide.
We love peptides. We love them all.
Thank you so much for joining. Good night, all.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.